Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Political Fixer Live. I'm your host this evening, Shauna Presley Vircher, and I hope you are excited to join me for a really interesting episode. We've got a lot of weird, unsettling stories to talk about this week. I was so weirded out by some of the news, it felt so off putting that I literally checked to see if there was a full moon this week because everything felt that off. There's not, by the way, but it is that wonky. So we're going to discuss a few different stories, and we're going to actually end up with, as I make sure that we're broadcasting to all of our platforms here, we're going to make sure that we circle back on a couple of stories that we discussed in the prior couple of weeks. So let me do a rundown for you of what to expect on tonight's show and the topics that we're going to be covering. If you've never joined us before for a Political Fixer Live, super easy to participate. We've got a great Political Fixer family. I'm seeing so many of them. I just saw Susie B hopping on and others. I see Kathy McGrath Walcott, so many of our Political Fixer family coming on. You could participate in the chat discussion with them and with me. We love that audience participation. Just keep it nice, keep it nice and civil. But our Political Fixer family is awesome with that. We're going to be covering a few different topics from different perspectives. We are going to talk about the really kind of surreal meeting that happened with our military leaders from around the world who received an order to sit in a chair and listen, not knowing exactly what they'd be listening to. Well, we're going to talk about what it is and why it was so creepy and unsettling. We're going to be, as I mentioned before, talking about some of the stories we covered over the last couple of weeks and why those stories are not over yet. But the good news is that you all have made a positive impact with some of these stories. The bad news is the work's not done and we've got to still pay attention to them. I'll fill you in on what I mean by that in just a little bit. But our story to lead it off for tonight is Shut It Down. We are going to talk about the looming government shutdown that is changing so rapidly that we might get news of different things happening while we're on this broadcast. So, definitely, as you see any developments with this story throughout the program, feel free to share them with all of us. I see Professor Liberty Esquire. I see Stephanie. We've got Jay Robot on. We've got some of our really great political fixer friends that definitely keep me in line here, folks, and share what you know about these stories. But let me give you a little bit of a backstory on where we are with this shutdown. If you're not really sure what's going on, you're not alone. Even if you've followed government shutdowns before, this one's weird. Again, the energy is weird. I guess that's our theme for tonight is weird and creepy. So let me give you just a quick summation of what's going on. So basically, every year you're supposed to renew the government budget. It's an official process that used to be kind of ho hum. It was kind of a procedural process. But then at some point in time, fairly recently, our Congress realized, aha, we can take hostages with this process. We can use it to kind of force last minute negotiations on things that are important to us. And suddenly, the budget renewal every year became a giant game of congressional chicken. Which side is going to blink first? And here we are yet again watching to see who is going to blink. Now, the last time this budget came around, people were disappointed with, a lot of people were disappointed saying that Democrats didn't negotiate hard enough and get enough things out of it. And then it got even worse because since that budget negotiation, our sitting lovely leader, 47, just decided he was going to ignore the congressional budget, fund whatever he wanted, let Doge cut whatever they wanted, and just kind of hijack the whole process. And the Supreme Court recently ruled, yeah, yeah, that's fine. Do what you want. A congressional appropriation is more like a suggestion. It just kind of shocked the legal world. So, whether or not you think this process is important, whether or not you think it's going to stick, here's the thing, it might impact a lot of people. Over 100,000 Government workers might either be furloughed, meaning they're temporarily out of work and without paychecks, or they might be laid off altogether. Who's to say? It's a fun game show we run around here in our United States of America. And on top of that, military families might have their pay interrupted. We're not sure what services would be interrupted. And on top of that, there's a lot of bluster and saber rattling on both sides, but primarily from the president himself, saying that he's actually going to enjoy cutting a lot of these democratic services. And when asked to explain what those are, Mike Johnson said it included things like food stamps and WIC, which is, payment to feed pregnant mothers and babies, right? Like all of these services that apparently only Democrats like. So that's what's at stake right now. We don't know exactly what's going to shut down if it shuts down. We don't know what they're going to cut from behind the scenes. And even if they reach a negotiation, we don't know if they're going to actually follow through with it. So, what is the status as of when we came on the air? And again, any of you feel free to, jump in here if you've got earlier updates. So, sometimes with this stuff, again, when the cameras are rolling and the press is covering it during the light of day, it's all punch, punch, punch. I'm not going to do it. Yes, you are. Just a lot of back and forth bickering, right? But then when the cameras go off, many of them, and everybody's going to bed, and in the later hours of the night, as the clock ticks down, then their, better, calmer selves come to the table. And a lot of times you have last minute negotiations. But here's the thing, I don't think that's going to happen right now, but you all tell me what you think. Let me give you my case here. I'm going to plead my case for why I don't think we're going to see a negotiation come to fruition tonight. And you tell me what you think. All right. So, my first thing is that their Democratic leadership right now, in my humble opinion, has not shown the strongest of negotiation tactics. The reason I say that is instead of saying, hey, you break it, you bought it, this is your Congress, your House of Representatives, your Oval Office, your Senate, you shut it down, it's your problem, and sticking with that, instead, both Schumer and Jeffries, our Democratic leaders of the Senate and the House, sent really nice letters to the president asking him to please meet with them. And while they may have felt like this was respectful and a good, customary tone to use to try to be positive entering negotiations, it came across as looking weak. And 47 pounced on it. He canceled the meeting, he rescheduled the meeting, and he made him look a little foolish. So they already kind of came in looking a little bit like they were the ones that were, caught on their heels, so to speak, rather than the ones in charge with the leverage, with the PR leverage of, hey, this is your problem. So that meeting right away caused some problems. Now, we don't know 100% everything that's been said back and forth, but let me tell you why I feel like negotiations in that meeting and the subsequent conversations didn't go well. Because 47 then posted an AI generated video including leaders Schumer and Jeffries, making fun of them. He put a large mustache on one of them, he put a sombrero on one of them. And I'm going to read you the transcript of this video that was posted by the President of the United States. And I want to warn you, I'm not going to read the foul language, but it is still heavily offensive. So please be mindful. These are not my words. This is a quote from the President of the United States, a post on his social. It says, and this is a fake Schumer talking to a fake Jeffries. Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because all of our woke trans BS. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Oh, sweet Jesus. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of, at least for a while until they realize that they hate us too. What the hell, dude? I mean, okay, again, weird is the theme of the week with this stuff. Like, that is even by today's standards, like just crazy with a capital KKK. So, All right. So negotiations on that side, my case to all of you is with my professional decades of experience, which is definitely needed here. Don't think it went very well. And so let's go back to Congress, the actual people whose job, who receive six-figure salaries from us, their job is to figure this stuff out and actually get the government to work for us. How is that going? Well, they're not there. At least most of them, because Speaker Mike Johnson just shut it down. He's like, he offered what's called a continuing resolution or a CR. It's basically a week long band aid that says, yeah, I don't want to talk about this right now. We can keep it open for a week if you want, but I'm not doing anything for it. So sign it, don't sign it. I'm out of here. And shut Congress down early. They're in the heat of negotiations, and he just yeeted out of DC. So they're not even there to negotiate with. Meanwhile, House Democrats, to their credit, the last time we checked, were still in DC. Okay, just so bad at this. Okay, so they I want to make sure that I get this right. On the east steps of the Capitol, on Tuesday morning, Hakeem Jeffries held a press release to talk about how they're not backing down and they are not going to allow an awful budget to pass. And we'll talk more about what's in that budget in just a second. But honestly, I mean, does it even matter at this point? Anyway, concludes the press conference without taking any questions. And multiple members of the press described Democrats as scurrying away after the press conference. Now, that is supposition, that's opinion, that's not fact, but holy moly, right? So they're not looking like they're coming from a position of strength. And this stuff is important. Let's talk about the real impact, not just on government employees, but on all of us that is at stake right now. Right now, healthcare subsidies are set to expire for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Americans over the coming days. And right now, Democrats are saying you have to extend payments for this healthcare. You have to put a place in our budget for healthcare for Americans, people on so-called Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. If you're covered by that, that could be in danger. People on Medicare, people on Medicaid, all of that is in danger because of the so-called big beautiful bill, and they're trying to fix it. And so far, not happening. I love how Professor Liberty Esquire is saying these days are just merging into one another. Veronica wants me to point out the deadline is midnight tonight. Yes, the deadline is tonight. And you got one person acting like a toddler, basically creating an AI puppet show of the other side of the aisle. You have other people running scared and not even in DC right now. And on top of all of that, because it just keeps getting better, folks. On top of all of that, we now have a change in tone from the White House. We went from, listen, we hate to see this happen, but if it happens, it's their problem and their fault, to actually, this could be a good thing. Instead of furloughing people, putting them on temporary leave, let's fire a bunch of them. Let's get rid of a bunch of these programs. I don't like them anyway. Well, cool, man. Let's just slash everybody's lives apart because you don't like it. I mean, let's be honest, you don't understand most of it, but okay, cool, cool, cool. And so it doesn't seem like he's worried about this. In fact, it seems like he's hunkering down for the long haul. I want to credit Bulwark, which is Bulwark. They did some really great reporting on the negotiations back and forth. You can find their publication for free on Medium. That's Bulwark, Bulwark. But in this next segment, or this next piece of this segment, forgive me, I want to credit Marissa Kabas, and that's spelled Kabas. I hadn't read anything by her prior to today, but she had a really great piece targeted uh tar- targeted, look where my head's at, titled we're all just needing some rest and some calm right here that we're not going to get anytime soon, I'm afraid. But the piece by Marissa Kabas is titled Trump Mandates All Federal Agencies Send an Email Blaming Dems for the Potential Government Shutdown. Now, this is the email that, again, the guy sitting in the Oval Office has required, and this has been confirmed by 16 different federal agencies, according to this reporting, they received instructions to send an email that says the president opposes a government shutdown and strongly supports the continuing resolution. Unfortunately, Democrats are blocking this continuing resolution due to unrelated policy demands. Yeah, who needs healthcare? And if congressional Democrats maintain their current posture and refuse to pass the continuing resolution to keep the government funded before midnight on September 30th, federal appropriated funding will lapse. This will result in certain government activities, not specified, ceasing. In addition, designated pre notified employees will be temporarily furloughed. This agency has contingency plans for executing a shutdown. So this doesn't sound like a guy that's saying, "Hey, let's keep this thing open." This sounds like a guy that thinks that he can wreak havoc and score political points and create more confusion and capitalize on some of the plans that he's already started to put into place with Doge by stripping us of essential services. That's what this sounds like to me. What about you? I want to hear from all of you. I want to know, what do you think is going to happen with this government shutdown? And I also want to know, like, are you worried? Is this something that you think is going to impact you or your family? Is there a specific concern that you have? Does the process in general, even if you are not someone who might be directly impacted by a government shutdown with you or your family or your benefits, are you concerned about what you're seeing? Right? User 9654, good to see you, user again. I don't feel safe in this country at all nowadays. Such a great point. Um, and there's a lot of reasons why. I will say I'm sorry that that is true, but I see why it's true. Moon Dancer says GOP is not going to cave. I don't think. Um, I see that I see ATL Aviator. Oh, I got you, ATL. Okay. I want to know how to replace our leadership. You and me both, Sister Suffragette. I think, I don't know the answer to that, but if I'm trying to predict, I think it's going to have to come after midterms. My hope would be that we have midterms, that there is a groundswell of more fiery, is that a good way to say it? Fiery Democrats who get elected. And as a result, people have the votes that they need to replace the leadership. That's what I would predict would happen. But you know what? I didn't predict this. So who is to say? But I share your sentiment. Um, you know, um, I see, is it Mejanu? Mejaneu? What came out of that meeting today was barbaric. What a great way to put it. And I'm not sure if you're talking about the negotiations or you're talking about that military meeting, but either way, I agree. And we're going to be talking about the other meeting in just a bit. They all need to go. Um, Me, Jane, you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Me, Jane, you. Thank you for sharing that with me. Um, I have a specific concern by Hot Wheels 76. My son won't be paid. He's in the army. How will he buy groceries for his four children? Hot Wheels, I'm very sincerely sorry that this is happening to him and so many others of our men and women in uniform and their families. There's just no excuse for it. It is absolutely disgusting. And it used to be that even during these heightened tensions, we made sure to carve things out and say, don't worry, certain people are still going to be getting their paychecks. Now that could still happen. I don't want to I don't want to say something out of turn, but today they said it wasn't. Today they were bragging about basically hostage taking, saying, well, military won't be getting their paychecks, people won't be getting their food stamps, and it's your fault. It was literal hostage taking of the people of our country, including men and women in uniform. And if they follow through with that, it's even again in the scale of what we are becoming used to, appalling and shocking. But sending my love to all of the families out there that are concerned. Um, Veronica Kennard saying $1 trillion in healthcare cuts, people will not survive. It is so true. I see all of these TikTok videos and social posts about people concerned about their medications. This is on top of certain medications they're saying now are going to be tariffed at 100%. And so you've got all of these different issues with people worrying about that, worrying about access to healthcare. here's something I don't know, like going back to our veterans. If they shut down the government, will they still be able to go to the VA and get health care? Normally, I would say yes, but this is an unprecedented time. Um, so um, I have someone offering advice. I want to give a shout out to A Nana in Arizona or AZ. Check with the bank to see if they can defer mortgage payments. Some of the banks defer mortgages when this happens. For I'm assuming you mean for veterans. Thank you so much, Nana in Arizona. That's extremely useful information. Definitely verify that, everyone, but I really, really appreciate it. Stephanie is saying the worry is from every direction and it's overwhelming. You are not the only one that feels that way. I see Claudia G asking, why are other politicians allowing this to happen? Would love some clarification on what you mean by this. But if you're talking about the shutdown, I feel like the Democratic Party is kind of frozen in place. They don't know how to negotiate with a terrorist. And when you are talking about causing intentional harm and possible, like medical harm and bankruptcy and all these traumas to people, that is a version of terrorism, unfortunately, right? And I think they don't know how to have a discussion or a negotiation with someone who's coming to the table in bad faith. I'm not saying that that makes them bad people. I think what we're all kind of getting, well, I'll say this, what I'm getting frustrated with, I won't speak for all of you, but what I'm getting frustrated with is, yes, this is an unusual time. Suck it up, Buttercup. But it's the moment. So rise to meet it. I mean, that's what we're looking for. And to be fair, some of our leaders are doing it, but this, whatever. I'm going to leave that there. I'll leave that there. Kelly is saying, good evening to Kelly. Hello, Kelly. The rhetoric from the right blaming Democrats is creating more havoc. I would say, Kelly, absolutely. And that's the intention, right? Democrats are blaming Republicans. Republicans are blaming Democrats. And usually it's so easy to say, who can say? But there's something called math. And the bottom line is that right now, let's put this into perspective. Let's strip away context and continuing resolution. Let's just strip it all down. Republicans could pass what they need with the numbers that they have. The reason that they need Democrats in this discussion is because some of it is so toxic that the Republicans that are worried about reelection in the upcoming campaign cycle will not vote yes on it. Some of their own people will not vote yes on this. That is how toxic this is. So you don't have to read through nuance. You don't have to read through all of the bill and listen to the bickering. Just look at the numbers and understand that that's what's happening. And you can see just how gross this is. Um, Okay, I'm turning my mic up because someone's saying they're having trouble hearing me. Who's Your Mama says 47 speaks of the enemy within, and that's actually should refer to 47 in his administration. So, okay, let's continue with speaking about that genuine point. Let's talk about the genuine feelings surrounding this because I think this leads into kind of the next part of this segment, but it's related to a conversation some of us were having on last week's episode of Political Fixer Live. I want to talk about something a little bit more sinister with this government shutdown. So we're going to come to that in just a second. Before I dive in, I want to sincerely thank all of you for joining us on Political Fixer Live. We're at already almost 25,000 likes, which we sincerely appreciate. I want to thank the Political Fixer team that makes all of this happen. And so many of you, members of the Political Fixer family. Hi to Cassandra. I just saw her. You all make this content possible, and you also give us such kind, positive, and useful and informative feedback all the time, which is so grounding during these times. And I would like to think that we build a really awesome community on our different platforms to support each other as well. Hello to Claudia G. I see you as well. Okay. Rhonda 2022 is asking, did I see the message on the HUD website? That is a great question. I think, Rhonda, you're talking about this message. Yep, I found it here. I'm going to read and share for the group what you're referring to. We were talking about the weirdness of these negotiations and how it seems like 47 and the Republicans aren't interested in coming to the table. I'm going to share with you what Rhonda is so kind to bring up for us tonight. And then I'm going to tell you one of my theories as to why they do not want to come back to the table. So, first thing, this was an actual message that appeared on the Department of Housing and Urban Development's official government site. And I'm going to show you the screenshot just really quickly to verify that. It's not in color, but you get the gist. This is an actual message. I'm reading it to you. The radical left are going to shut down the government and inflict massive pain on the American people unless they get their $1.5 trillion wish list of demands. The Trump administration wants to keep the government open for the American people. There is a law, back when laws matter, that is called the Hatch Act. And what it means basically is that you can't use your official position, you can't use official grounds, you can't use the official government to campaign. I know, crazy, right? For exactly this reason. You're not supposed to be able to use our government as a way to score cheap political points, right? Square Foot Gardening for You says, we volunteer with the National Park Service. We were visiting today, and the ranger got that exact message. Okay. So I could speculate on the why. I think there's a lot of reasons why this dude loves chaos. He wants to inflict pain. We could have an entire show just about this, but there's one bit of information that I want to share with you. Thank you so much to Scott Bloom. Um, okay, here's the thing. Last week, we talked about something that was called, in essence, a petition that was co sponsored by Republicans and Democrats, in particular, Ro Khanna and Massey, a Republican and a Democrat, or Democrat and Republican, respectively. So they started a petition. The petition essentially needs a majority of House signatures. And what that means is they need, 50% plus one of the 435 members of the House to agree to this petition, and it could move forward. That means they needed 218 signatures on this petition. What did that petition say? It demanded the Department of Justice and other agencies release the full Epstein files. Oh, that's right. It always comes back to this, doesn't it? So they needed one more signature. Now, I want to say this was co sponsored by a Republican that Republicans have signed on, but the kind of gossip around DC was that no one wanted to be the Republican to put it over the edge. So last week on Political Fixer Live, we were waiting for election results that hadn't come in yet by the time we got off the air. We were waiting for a special election in Arizona for Congress to see what would happen. Would a Democrat win that seat? Because if a Democrat won that seat, then that particular Democrat said she would happily sign on to that petition. She would gladly become the 218th signature, and then that what's called a discharge petition would move forward. Well, it turns out that last Tuesday, Grijalda, um, Grijalva, forgive me, Grijalva, Adelita Grijalva did win her election. The Democrat did win her election, and she was to get sworn in and become the 218th signature on the discharge petition. And completely coincidentally, I'm sure, when all of this negotiation stuff started and when it was time to swear her in, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson abruptly terminated the House session and refused to swear her in. The session is not supposed to start again as it stands now, though again, who knows? But as it stands now, it is not expected to start again until October 7th. So, two things are true at once. Number one, you are preventing Democrats from having another vote in this budget discussion. They are denying representation of the voters of Arizona who voted by nearly 70%, 7-0, for this woman to represent them. Okay. So that's point one. That is fact. And point two is, oh, look at there. Coincidentally, you're stopping this discharge petition from moving forward. And if it were to move forward, then essentially it would prompt the Senate to have to vote on whether or not these files get released. And the way it's worded now, people believe it would pass. And that means that within 30 days, we would know the names of the people on this list, the so called Epstein list, that terrorized and worse, assaulted, etc., these young women and girls, right? Seeing Evelyn Sabero saying how Mike Johnson is a coward. I think that's one of the kinder things I would say, right? Um, okay. Um, there's a lot happening here, but I want to, this can all feel overwhelming. And before we move on to our next story, which kind of gets even darker, in my opinion, let's bring it back to some positive things here. Let's bring it back to some positive things. This is scary, it is awful, and we can feel helpless with it. But we were talking about how it was horrifying that the government could shut down comedians that they didn't like. And with all of you working together and working the phones and making the calls and canceling your Disney subscriptions, guess what? You made a huge difference. And the nation paid attention. The media shifted their coverage of the story, and Jimmy Kimmel was restored to the air, and Disney had to bend the knee, essentially. Not just Disney, but Sinclair Media and Nexstar, who we talked about last week on the show extensively, right? And I had some incorrect reporting last week. The reporting I had last week was that almost 50,000 of you canceled Disney subscriptions, causing not only a revenue dip and a shockwave in their revenue model, but also, causing them ultimately to say, okay, we give up. But it turns out I was incorrect. We now have new updated numbers, and it turns out it was 1.7 million of you canceled your subscription to Disney. Okay, that's amazing. So if you feel really helpless and alone right now, then understand that right there is just one piece of information and evidence to show you you are absolutely not alone. Okay, 1.7 million canceled their subscriptions. Those are families, not people, that put that together, right? And so many more people were also outraged, but maybe they didn't subscribe or maybe they were waiting to see. And right on top of that, you have Sinclair and Nexstar having to bend the knee, and they had to show Kimmel as well. I know that might sound somewhat small in the scheme of things when you're talking about comedy versus government shutdown. But look at what happens when we speak out together. And that's going to be part of what we talk about next, but I want to keep up with this, right? Listen, it's frustrating that they're not swearing in this new congresswoman from Arizona. It's extremely frustrating. But you know what? That means they're scared of her. They are scared of representation by the people. So let's not make them these big, undefeatable boogeymen that we can't possibly stand up to. Quite the opposite, right? Negotiations are happening, and Mike Johnson scurries home, right? They're talking about Democrats scurrying from their press conference. You're not even in town, dude, right? So right now, don't buy into this. They have all the power. No, no, no. We still have the power. For how long remains to be seen. I will acknowledge it's getting weird. Again, our theme for Political Fixer Live tonight is it's getting weird out there. These stories are heavy and strange and unprecedented. We used that word before, right? But let's not lose that hope and despair, okay? Square Foot Gardening for You wants me to point out that there is another No Kings protest, which is building some momentum. I've been seeing that. Thank you so much, Square Foot Gardening, on October 18th. Veronica Kennard pointing out that mainstream media is worthless. And I will say, I mean, again, we could go on that topic all night long. There's a lot of people saying that they also canceled their Hulu subscriptions, and you're right, owned by the same company. So a good thing to point out, it wasn't just Disney. There were a lot of different nicks in the Disney armor there, right? And Evelyn Sparrow says they're afraid and it's not even Halloween yet. I love it, Evelyn. Right? Okay. I want to really quickly before we pivot, I want to bring up the story or echo the story that Cassandra St. Clair is bringing out, mentioning we had a superintendent arrested by ICE here in Des Moines. I saw that in Iowa. The gentleman was a well decorated educator. And what I saw, Cassandra, even to me, even more horrifying was, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they also took away his educator license once he was arrested by ICE. User, one of you said that you are scared right now, even to go out. Like, absolutely, there are scary things. I want to kind of separate the points. It is absolutely concerning, to say the least, it's something to make some of us fear different things. Absolutely. I don't want to downplay that. But I also don't want to give them so much imaginary power that they think that they can just do anything without consequence. That being said, what's happening now is what many of us were concerned would happen prior to the election, which is when this is happening, who are the ones that are the most impacted? Those that are the most vulnerable, right? Those that are the most vulnerable are going to pay the price of what's happening the deepest, right? So, immigrants who are being targeted and just horrific things happening in that area, right? Not just disappeared, but we also had, unfortunately, that shooting. We have people that are dying in ICE custody. We have families that are being ripped apart. We have people being deported to Lord knows what additional country. Thank you, BB, for the kindness there. Um, we have veterans families that are not sitting on like their heavy stock portfolio that are about to go without paychecks possibly. That's, terrifying in so many different ways. We have people depending on medications that are either going to become more expensive, less accessible, or both. Right. So they're the most vulnerable in the nation are absolutely paying the heaviest price right now, which is why so many of us get together in our time, like on evenings like this. We're getting together in our spare time and trying to organize and encourage each other because we know how serious the stakes are. All of that is true. And also, what's true is they haven't licked us yet. I just want to say that. Like, we're not done yet. So we got to keep fighting, not just for ourselves, but especially for other people who are just really hurting and about to unfortunately possibly hurt more. And also we've got to keep raising each other's spirits. We've got to care for the caregivers, we've got to prop up the organizers, we've got to keep the mission moving forward, and we've got to sometimes apply laughter through tears because this is going to be a long slog. And, joy is a form of resistance. Joy is a form of resistance. And I certainly receive energy and joy from spending some of this time with you, even when we cover some of the darker topics. I hope you feel some of that as well. Some of you are asking where I was over the summer, and we're going to be talking about that on another show. But it's good to see so many familiar faces coming back. We just came back to our fall season just a couple of weeks ago, but I did have a very serious health issue, and I was away because of that. I'm happy to report that the surgeries and procedures went well. I'm making hopefully a full recovery. So far, so good. Every week getting stronger. But it does play into some of the conversations we've been having about some of these very serious topics, including women's access to healthcare. So we're going to be talking more about that on another day. But I thank you all for the well wishes and some of you concern, right? Many of you talking about how you come here for more positivity. Thank you so much. I do as well. And the topics aren't always positive, but we do try to put an encouraging or an empowering spin on it, or both. And thank you so much for the well wishes. I am feeling much, much better. It got serious. I'm not going to lie to you. It got very serious. And I'll just leave it at this. If you guys think I was fired up before, now that I'm all fixed up and I have a new issue to get upset about, which is women who have the same problems that I did, which we'll talk about another time, who don't have access to the level of amazing healthcare that I did. Inexcusable, inexcusable. I have since learned that a number of women have died from the condition that I just got treated for. Inexcusable. So I promise you, I will be recruiting you all in that fight because fired up and angry doesn't begin to describe the journey that this put me on. So, all right, let's dive in to a pretty big topic tonight. This is our top story for the evening, and I will tell you, we had lined up our show for the week and we kind of, I mean, things always change, right? Love the little crown. Thank you. um Things always change, but I was definitely not expecting this to be our top story, and yet so we rearranged the programming, and I've got some information for you on this top story, which is the military meeting, which I'm going to tell you, I'm not a big military person. I don't pretend to be an expert in it. I care, but it's not my area of expertise. That's why I wasn't really expecting to cover it very much tonight. But then some things happened. So This is story time, right? And for those of you that are on Political Fixer Live with us regularly, you know that we try to put context around the headlines when we can, especially when it comes to our top stories. So let me put a little bit of context and backstory into what we're going to dive into. And let me reassure you that you don't need to be an expert in the military either to appreciate what happened today, because holy moly. All right. Let me put some context in it. Before we talk about today, I want you to travel back with me 14 years ago, just over 14 years ago. And I'm going to share some elements of this that some of you might be familiar with, but I'm also going to share some inside elements that I have never spoken about publicly before now. I have never talked about or shared this story publicly before now. And even then, I got to be a little careful about how I share it because of, you know, agreements and whatnot. Okay, so go with me here. It was 14 years ago, April to be exact. The year was 2011. President Obama had been dealing with relentless media attacks with what would later become known as the birther conspiracy, saying that President Barack Obama, with the funny name and the father from Africa, was really not from here. He's not really American. He's not one of us. And all of these awful, hateful, fear baiting, racist attacks on the president's citizenship. Now, to try to shut all of this nonsense down, um, the Obama had talked about his, growing up in Hawaii quite openly, and it didn't seem to matter. And what you might recall from that time is one of the main people leading this really toxic charge against the sitting president was the current orange leader, 47 himself. And he would say things like, people actually have been studying Obama's real birth certificate and they can't believe what they're finding, right? The same old garbage that we're now so used to, just saying half a thing, and people are saying and just ginning up garbage, right? So to shut it down, President Obama released his long form certified birth certificate from, look at that, Hawaii. Okay. Well, here's where it gets interesting, and here's where possibly history may have changed course. Just days later, the president, Obama, was to host the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where hundreds of colleagues, elected leaders, and members of the press would get together and basically have a roast back and forth and then talk about the serious issues of media coverage and the importance of the First Amendment. Remember when we had one of those? Well, at this particular White House Correspondents' Dinner, then Obama joked about the birth certificate release. I'm going to read you a little bit of an excerpt from that night at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, spoken by President Obama. He said, now, just recently, in an unprecedented move, my campaign, because he was running for reelection, just released my long form birth certificate. Hopefully, this puts all doubts to rest. But just in case there are any lingering questions tonight, I'm prepared to go a step further and show a video of my birth. Did any of you watch that White House Correspondents' Dinner? Do you remember what happened next? Because credit to his writers, they then showed a clip of The Lion King where they hold the little baby lion up, right? And the audience starts roaring and laughter. And the president says, oh, well, back to square one. Man, do I miss him. Okay, so we went further with the joke, right? And there's a reason I'm sharing this with you, so bear with me. He goes further with the joke. He says, I want to make sure that the Fox News table understands that this was a joke. People are laughing. That's not my real birth video. That's a children's cartoon. You can call Disney if you don't believe me. He says, I know just the guy to call them. It's Donald Trump who's here tonight. And everybody points to him. And 47 was in the audience. He was in the audience of this White House Correspondents' Dinner. The camera pans to him, and Obama says, I know Trump, has taken some flack lately, but no one's happier and no one's prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. That's because he can finally get back to focusing on issues that matter, like, did we fake the moon landing? What really happened in Roswell? And where are Biggie and Tupac? And everyone just laughs and laughs and laughs. Well, here's the part of the story that a lot of people don't know. It angered him so much as the legend goes, that 47 immediately vowed to do something about it. Multiple people have said that he said some choice words about the sitting president. Basically, if he can be president, so can I. And he hired a consulting firm to figure out exactly how to do just that. And it just so happens that I was friends with someone whose husband was at that consulting firm. This is a small political world, and a lot of us know each other. And so I actually held in my hand and reviewed the analysis that this consulting firm supposedly, allegedly, I wasn't in the room, but presented to 47 about what was his pathway to the presidency. And that report was interesting. It basically said that him being a Democrat, which he was at the time, that 47 being a Democrat wouldn't work. And here's why Democratic voters would not respond to him. But if he were to go farther right than any other candidate that was running, he could basically hijack the Republican Party. And almost exactly a year later, after preparing that messaging, he did exactly that. He changed his voter registration to Republican in a preparation to run for presidency. And we all know after that lovely escalator ride down where he insulted some Mexican immigrants and then declared his bid to seek the nomination for presidency of the United States. And many of us thought, how hilarious this is, how sad and hilarious this is. It'll never happen. And here's where we are today. Okay, fast forward. We're here in just the worst possible timeline that you could possibly imagine for this country. That House Correspondents' Dinner possibly set into course a set of events that none of us could have predicted. And today, we took another weird and strange turn because he did become president, as we all too painfully are aware of, twice. And today, Mr. Fox and Friends himself, Secretary of State Pete Hegseth, summoned some of our top military generals and military leaders to a meeting, to an in person, publicized, we're all going to be in the same room if anyone would like to target us meeting of America's leaders from around the world. And they were told that they had to sit for whatever was coming next. Okay. I'm seeing that Shirley has questions. Would love to answer those questions. Shirley, give me just a minute and I will circle back to you. All right. So let's talk about this meeting today. And then I will definitely take questions and your feedback because I have questions for you all based on what happened today. Let me give you a quick rundown of what happened. You have hundreds of America's top military officials in one room. And what happened in this meeting that could have been an email was a weird Tony Robbins style motivational speech of some sort by Pete Hegseth that lasted 45 minutes. 45 minutes of him just talking, just going through the stage, emphatically signaling, doing his best. I'm going to sell you a DVD set at the end of this for $99.95 impression. Hegseth is just going to rally the troops literally. I'm going to save you the migraine and I'm going to give you my top five statements that are actual quotes that our Secretary of State said today. Here they go. Number 5, talking about grooming. No more beardos. The era of unprofessional appearance is over. You called us here to talk about facial hair, Fox and Friends? Okay. Actual quote. So no more facial hair for the military. I know you guys feel safer at night with that. Number 4 of my favorite comments by Hegseth. All physical standards are going to be raised to a male level across the board. He said an entire generation of generals and admirals were told that they must parrot an insane fallacy that our diversity is our strength. They think that males who think they're females is totally normal. Again, this is why you called us here. You can't keep up with our Navy SEALs. What are you talking about? That we need to increase our standards. But okay. Number 3, Actual comments that our Secretary of State said today. This is a doozy. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations or really any formations and see fat troops. Guys, I verified this. This actually came out of his mouth. He called them fat. Likewise, it is completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon. It's a bad look. Holy moly, any of these guys could rip you in two, and you just looked at them from your little cozy position and called them fat? Oh my goodness, not even the top. We're still going. We're still going. It was very tough to decide between 2 and 1. It was very, very tough. But here's comment number 2. Our Secretary of State had a statement to our enemies. And guys, I'm reading these quotes verbatim. Okay. Should our enemies choose foolishly to challenge us, they will be crushed by our violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department. In other words, to our enemies, FAFO. I have 4 letters. OMFG. What? Okay. And the final one before we open up the floor. And we're not done. We're not done, but to this part of the conversation, this is the new mission statement according to the Secretary of State of the Department of War. And again, I am reading this verbatim. From this moment, from this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: war fighting, preparing for war, and preparing to win, unrelenting and uncompromising in that pursuit. Not because we want war, no one here wants war, but it's because we love peace. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Do any of you watch Peacemaker? Did any of you see the second Suicide Squad movie? Do any of you love John Cena as much as I love John Cena? It's on HBO, not for kids. Highly recommended if you don't. But Peacemaker has a saying. I'm going to read Peacemaker's saying. It is, I cherish peace with all my heart, and I don't care how many men, women, and children I need to kill to get it. That is a dark comedy, folks. And yet, this is our mission statement. We're here for war because we love peace. Holy sweet Jesus. Okay. All right. Now we're going to talk about what our commander in chief had to say after that. But I'm going to open up the floor to all of you as you join us on Political Fixer Live. And I see that we have almost 65,000 likes on this conversation, this terrifying conversation where Veep meets the Handmaid's Tale, this dollar store dictatorship that we're finding ourselves in. Holy moly. Okay, did any of you see this? Did you know that this happened? Did you follow this story? Do you think it's as crazy as I think it is? I want to know your thought. Okay, so Kizra is pointing out there was little response from the generals. Valid point and so relevant to the next thing we're about to talk about, but that's because when you're in a military meeting, not a Tony Robbins conference, then you're not supposed to applaud and do you sit respectfully and you await your military orders cuz it's a military meeting. Okay, Claudia G says nothing from this administration shocks me anymore. This is just depressing. Bobby Dugas providing great context here. My military friends were actually nauseous following this today. Moon River saw it, also says, yes, it was gobsmacking. Veronica Kennard says, I'm in the twilight zone. We're right here with you, Veronica. We're right here. Um, you know, um, Dana points out the military is allowed to unalive anyone, even non-combatants. Yeah, it's crazy. We need to take our country back. Um, Hegseth is the Secretary of Defense. Not yes, you're correct. Secretary of State is Rubio. I have not had enough caffeine. Thank you for that correction. Secretary of Defense. Absolutely correct. Thank you, Mr. Van Dyke. Kathy McGrath Walcott says, I was shocked watching. Gwendolyn saying, hey, can we just stop paying taxes? I wouldn't recommend that, but I get the sentiment. Mark Ramos saying just a photo op. Again, he's going to sell some inspirational DVDs, guys. You don't know. This could be his side hustle. Let's Secretary of War. Oh, good correction to by Shirley Crenshaw, not the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of War. Holy moly. Okay, the pictures of the audience reaction were priceless. That's from Ellen. Yeah. Okay. I want to go back really quickly and take another comment from Kelly, who wanted to add a funny, again, the laughter through tears thing on the last story. And then we're going to keep going with this military story because it does take an even darker turn. So bear with me on this. But Kelly wanted to bring up a really funny point that there is a man on TikTok saying he's given Speaker of the House Mike Johnson until Wednesday to swear in that Arizona congresswoman, or he says Mike Johnson has a grinder profile and he'll release it. Now, all of this is speculation based on a TikTok, but hilarious nonetheless. And I'm down for it. Let's see what happens with that. Love that. BB saying, and yet he, 47, wants a Nobel Peace Prize, right? Okay. I want to keep going with 47's contribution to this, and then we're going to talk some more on all of this on Political Fixer Live. If you think flying from halfway around the world to sit and listen to that nonsense is bad, wait until you hear what happened with our actual commander in chief. So Hegseth's comments were about 45 minutes. 47's comments lasted over an hour. 70 minutes is the estimate of his comments that I saw. And it was like Cocoa Puffs. So there was a lot of rants about there not being applause, as some of you pointed out, that it was a quiet room. Now, this was not some big political statement. That is protocol. But apparently he wasn't familiar with that protocol. So he says, and I quote, "I've never walked into a room so silent before." Get this. If you want to applaud, you applaud. If you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank, there goes your future. Sure. Let's threaten the careers of our military generals because they're not clapping for you. Okay, that's normal behavior. Um, he said that our Navy vessels, the boats and ships are ugly, that we got to do something about that. What do you want them embossed with gold? Like, what are we thinking here, right? So the boats need and the ships need to be updated because they're ugly, apparently. Now, this I verified in two independent sources besides the transcript because I actually didn't believe it was true, and I verified it. I'm going to read this quote exactly and carefully. Out of our commander in chief's mouth today, he said, while talking about nuclear weapons, he says nuclear. There are two N words, and you can't use either of them. Uh, We're gonna move right past that. We're gonna move right past that. Okay. It got worse somehow. It got worse. So this is the meat of the matter. Our commander in chief stood in front of his generals and he said that inner cities are a big part of war. He said domestic unrest is a war from within. Again, these are quotes. And that he would straighten out cities run by Democrats one by one. He called American unrest, which he means free speech and the right to protest, an invasion from within. And he said we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military. So our president just instructed, make no mistake of this, all joking aside, our president just instructed his military to use force against his own citizens if they speak out against him. That was what that was. That's what that meaning really was. Hegseth thought it was about him, and that's all well and good, but that's what the intention of the meeting was. And this isn't even the only time this week that 47 has called for violence against citizens. Like, this has been escalating for a while, and I understand that, and I understand we're starting to become numb to this, but we can't. I want to just say this is just this week, all right? He posted on social media, I am directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege. I am also authorizing full force if necessary. To be clear, that is lethal force. That is what he's referring to. And according to The Guardian, who attended a press conference in the Oval Office, he was speaking about Washington, D.C. And I'm going to read this quote exactly as well. Anybody murders something in the Capitol, capital punishment, capital, capital punishment. And he kept repeating it, according to The Guardian, as if soullessly enjoying the wordplay on a deadly serious subject. All right, there's a reason I told you the story about the White House press correspondence dinner, and then I definitely want your comments on this. There's a reason I told you that at the beginning of this segment, because I think one of the reasons that things feel so weird and so uncomfortable at the same time with all of this is because we're faced with a duality that we're having trouble talking about. We're even having trouble kind of getting it straight in our minds. And that's it, this is the duality. On the one hand, what is happening here is objectively horrifying. It's objectively horrifying. And so there's that weight of, for some of us, fear, for some of us, anger, for some of us, sadness, that this is actually happening in a country that many of us love and we have all sacrificed and given in so many different ways, and we're scared for our neighbors and our families. That is all very, very true. And on top of that, it is happening by some of the biggest idiots that we have ever seen in government ever. And it's kind of weirdly funny in a strange, not funny way. Like, the guy with the slick back hair doing the motivational speech in front of the American flag, wearing the American flag suit, and the guy that can't understand that capital can mean two things, which is the capital of the nation and capital punishment. Let's not get him started on capital letters, right? Like, it's weird, and we're having trouble with that, but I'm going to give you two ways that we can kind of stand up against it. One thing is, and this is homework. This is your homework. We usually end Political Fixer live and talk about our homework. Here's some things that you can do about what's going on. The first thing is, for those of you with social platforms, those of you on social that feel comfortable sharing things and you feel like it's appropriate, share clips, like the actual clips of some of the things being said and done. Some of you pointed out about the ICE violence, share that clip. You pointing out about this capital punishment and calling cities dirty, share the clip. Mike Johnson standing there smirking when he's talking about taking away WIC and food stamps, share the clip, because people don't trust anymore. They might not trust it anyway with this whole AI, which is kind of the point, but that's another subject for another time. They might not trust it anyway, but most people, if they know and trust you, they will trust at least some of what you're saying. And we've got to get that approval rating and that trust rating of his, we've got to expose it even further, because what that does is it erodes his power, right? So that's part one. But part two goes back to that Obama story and the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Yes, share these things, talk about how real it is, how it's not okay. And at the same time, I'm going to ask you to do bonus homework. Share something mocking them, create something mocking them. It could be about this. It could be about the fact that the dude's escalator stopped and he couldn't figure out how stairs worked. It could be about how he loves his gold everything. Why do it? Why mock them? I'm going to give you a few different reasons. It sounds strange, I know, but go with me here. Why mock them? Because number one, when you mock someone like that, then it takes away the scariness for so many people. When they're laughing at them, they're not as scared of them. And that makes it harder for them to control us, right? To control us by fear and to control us with giving in advance, right? So that's really important. And number two, this has been documented throughout history. I'm going to quote Hannah Arendt. Forgive me for misspelling if I mispronounce her name. It's Arendt, who wrote The Origins of Totalitarianism. And she said that leaders like this, they want to project inevitability and grandeur. And if you start to show that they are actually ridiculous, it kind of breaks that spell, or which she says breaks that aura. And there's other people that have done this type of research. Gene Sharp and Erica Chenoweth, they did some civil resistance studies, and they said that nonviolent resistance should include ridicule as a tactic. We should mock people. It should include ridicule because dictators demand reverence. And when we use satire and when we use mockery, according to their research, it denies them of a certain type of oxygen. And this study has been proven with bullies, with psychological research. Mockery works, it pops their little dictator balloon. So I'm going to ask that you all share comedic things, create comedic things in addition to that. And we know this works especially on him. Why? Because we know it's his kryptonite. Being mocked in front of everyone at that White House Correspondents' Dinner, he couldn't stand it. And in front of America and with a black president on top of that, oh no, it could not stand. He changed his entire life's decisions based on being mocked. We know it works on him. So you want a way to have some fun and get back at the bad guys? Let's see your best jokes. Let's see your best put downs. Let's see your best taglines. Again, I love the one I saw earlier today. He's a dollar store dictator, right? I like all of that. Be mindful, you know, when you're exercising your comedic charm there, be mindful not to go too low and who you might be insulting in the process when you're coming up with some of these things. But this works. And we can't be scared of these idiots. We absolutely cannot. I could deal with losing America to someone super charming, super smart, super conniving with this really complicated genius plan. Oh my lord, that is not what's happening. We're not going to lose to these idiots, right? Nelson asking what that book was. Again, great question. So the Hannah Arendt book was The Origins of Totalitarianism. Gene Sharp and Erica Chenoweth wrote Civil Resistance Studies. And the rest of it was just general psychological studies. I don't have a sourcing for you, right? Um, Fat PHAT, so very cool boy says, mock him, and then when he gets upset, double down, mock him more. Danger Zone points out, look at what Gavin Newsom is doing. Yes, I don't love everything that Gavin Newsom does, but it's not for me. I'm not his audience. I'm not the audience that Gavin Newsom is targeting, and what he is targeting is highly effective. The mocking of his social posts and the videos and the glamour shots on the magazine covers, highly effective, right? And Wanda is saying he's easy to mock. Let's go for it. I have some friends in the chat that don't love my liberal positions. And guess what? That's okay. For now, we still live in a free country where I'm allowed to express them. And I'm a girl. Crazy times we're living in, right? So, Tangerine Tyrant, love that one, right? Okay, Nickel Dime Quarter asks, are you working with anyone trying to turn this boat around currently? Great question. Love the question, Nickel Dime. We are working on some things. If any of you want to get involved, you can go to politicalfixer.com. We haven't really had a lot to share with you. There's been a lot of things behind the scenes, but we are rolling out and actually started. I have another training on Monday. We started doing some trainings on messaging, organizing. We've been working with people who want to run for office. So let's talk about that just a little bit, all right? Let's talk about ending. We love to end on a positive note. Let me tell you what I'm seeing on the ground. I'd love to know what you are saying. I see so many fun things happening. Edna's saying, I had fun on Facebook joking on MAGA. I had everyone laughing. Claudia wondering if Gavin would make an interesting presidential candidate. Sandra saying, I will keep fighting. They are paper tigers. Love that. Very beautiful. Yeah, love it. And I love the almost 84,000 likes too. Okay, so let's put a pin in all of this and talk about the strategy. Thank you again to Nickel Dime Quarter for putting us in a context and framework for action. So what I'm seeing is a record number of people saying that they want to run for office, and that is not just me. There's a number of different nonprofit and political action organizations that are reporting the same thing. People of all ages from all parts of the country and all levels of office. We talk a lot about federal, but these other races, these local races, are just as important. All right. I want to remind everybody that during the height of the pandemic, the safety of your children came down to decisions made by a school board member. Every race is important, right? And so if you're considering running for something, please let us know how we can connect you to people and support you. So we are doing a lot of candidate training, a lot of training teams on how to work on campaigns. If you are someone that wants to work on a campaign, again, just go to politicalfixer.com. We have a real phone number, a real email address, or if you prefer, just fill out the contact form and we'll get back to you. And we will try to match you with races in your area if that's something that you want to do. If it's something you want to do, but you don't know how, let us know and we can let you know when we're doing training for things like treasurer, media, graphic design, how to reach out to voters. There's so many different positions that campaigns need that no matter what your background is, you could contribute something. And in fact, I would love it if some of you would consider careers in this area because there's not nearly enough people working on these campaigns that are actually have a good heart and are not just there for a paycheck and will help to get people that are elected that actually care about this country and want to help other people, right? People pointing out James Tallarico, love that guy. It's a Texas race. If you haven't been following it, I highly suggest that you do. James Tallarico has some amazing social clips. That kid, I call him a kid. He's not, of course, but he looks like it compared to me. But he's extremely charismatic. And one thing he does very well is weave in his faith in his political values. I love that. So that's if on the campaign side. Now, some of you are trying to start nonprofits, you work for nonprofits, you want to know how to organize, you maybe just want to organize your friends or your community. We're doing that training as well. So if you're in the Florida area, we will be at the Plant City Democrats on Monday for their meeting, doing one of those trainings for free. So you can definitely check that out. But we're going to be traveling around the country. And I know some of you have already said you would like for us to come to your neck of the woods. So if that's the case, to answer Nickel Dime's question, yes, we are going to be partnering with a number of different organizations, some great organizations out there doing amazing work. We're going to help amplify them so you guys can get involved in their existing work. And then we're going to be helping them to offer trainings to anyone who wants them, not just their existing audience, but all of you. So, I want to look at some more comments here. We're at 90,000 likes, guys. Great Tuesday. Great Political Fixer Live. The Raju, is that how you pronounce it? Let's not forget to donate to these campaigns. That is equally as important. Yes. And tonight is one of their many deadlines for people that are running for a number of offices because it's the quarter end. So if your phone hasn't been blowing up and your email inbox isn't full with requests for donations, then I celebrate you. But it is important because a lot of times these races don't do a lot of polling until closer to the election. And so when the media is like, I wonder if I should take this candidate seriously if they have a shot, I don't love it, but a lot of times they look at the fundraising totals and also how many people donated. So even if you can only give like $10, I'm not kidding, that does make a difference because they look at how many different people gave. So if there's candidates from anywhere in the country that you think you should support, if you can donate, highly recommend that you do so. Edna asked a great question. How do you know if you're donating to a legit campaign? That is a great question. What I would say is, in my practice, I do not donate via those text messages that come in. Even if one of those text messages catches my attention, then what I do is I look at the candidate, I then go to Google and I say so and so for Congress or so and so for Texas House or so and so for Illinois Senate or whatever it is. I find their actual website and I give there. You can also go to services like ActBlue and type it in. They've done a lot of cracking down on kind of duplicate pages that make it seem like you're giving to the candidate, but you're not. They've done a lot to enforce that. So ActBlue is another resource, but I like to go directly to the candidate's webpage and give that way and give directly to them. And that way, it's getting to the candidate directly. So I don't like clicking on the email links and the text blasts and all of that. Edna's saying I get a lot of text message. Right, same. So yeah, I mean, I think that all of this is important. Getting involved is important in whatever way you feel comfortable. If you can volunteer, if you can raise your voice by knocking in doors or making calls on behalf of candidates or causes, including different advocacy groups that are working on some really important issues right now, like immigration and violence against women and racial equality and veterans that are about to be without services and care. They help them pay their mortgage. There's a lot of great organizations that are out there. So you could also consider giving some time or treasure to them as well, right? So, there's a lot of different ways that we can give. And again, if you're looking to be someone that levels up in how you contribute positivity to the world and enact positive change, we are here to help with that. And so that is our calling. We have donors that give to Political Fixer PAC and other organizations to offset the cost of that. So we do as much as we can for free, including broadcasts like this, to try to make sure that you feel like you're educated on what's going on and not getting misinformation, that you feel heard and empowered through this, and also that we stay organized and connected with each other as a community. There are so many different forces that are working to just rip us apart and make us feel hopeless and make us feel alone. And I really, really hope that one of the things that you get out of our Political Fixer Live time together is that you are absolutely not alone. Look at all the amazing humans that are here in the chat right here with you. Just awesome, awesome folks. All right. Politicalfixer.com. If you want to reach me any bat time, any bat channel, that's the best way to do it. I know that you all have lives and obligations. And so I sincerely appreciate you spending some time with me here this evening. I'm happy to be back on the air. This is, I think, only our third week back after me being on a health hiatus. So we're happy to be back for the fall season. And man, do the writers have some curveballs in the script this season for all of us. And I want to thank you all for getting us over 100,000 likes. We're at 103,000 likes. Thank you so much. Oh, I just saw you, Leah. Good to see you. It's so good to see so much of my Political Fixer family here. On behalf of myself and my Political Fixer team, particularly Sarah and Jay Robot, I want to thank you for joining us next week, Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be back talking about the ways of this crazy world of ours. I hope that until then, you take care of yourselves and you take care of each other and you cause some good trouble out there. All right. I will see you all soon. Oh, love the heart, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Thank you, Probably Lost. I appreciate that. Thank you, Stephanie. Good to see you. Good night. Shirley, we never got to those questions of yours. Dang it. Message me and I'll answer you. All right. Have a good night.